The underground research facility hummed with a desperate energy that seemed to pulse through its reinforced concrete walls. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her dark eyes fixed on a holographic display that flickered with complex quantum equations. Around her, the remnants of humanity's scientific elite worked in controlled chaos, each person a testament to survival, each machine a defiance against inevitable collapse. The world above was a graveyard of civilization. Climate catastrophes had reshaped continents. Resource wars had carved deep wounds into the planet's surface. Massive urban centers had been reduced to windswept ruins, their skyscrapers standing like bleached skeletons against a perpetually gray sky. Humanity had been pushed to the absolute margins of existence, compressed into a few protected enclaves and underground research stations like this one. Elena's fingers traced the holographic interface, her touch leaving momentary ripples in the quantum data stream. She was humanity's last hope, though she would have scoffed at such a dramatic description. To her, this was simply the next problem to solve, the next impossible barrier to break. The facility was a marvel of desperate engineering. Located deep beneath the ruins of Silicon Valley, it drew power from an experimental geothermal quantum energy system that her team had cobbled together from salvage technology. Every piece of equipment was a testament to human ingenuity, repurposed, modified, pushed far beyond its original design. System instability at 87%, announced AI, the facility's adaptive AI assistant. The holographic projection of a stylized neural network pulsed with warning colors, deep reds and urgent oranges. Elena didn't flinch. Compensate. Reroute quantum entanglement matrix through secondary quantum coherence channels. Her team watched in a mixture of hope and terror. They had attempted this experiment 17 times before. 17 failures that had consumed years of work, billions in remaining global resources, and the last hope of a dying species. Humanity had been cut off from the stars, isolated by its own failures and the indifference of a vast, uncaring universe. The quantum communication project was more than just a technological endeavor. It was a lifeline, a final attempt to pierce the cosmic silence that had separated humanity from any potential galactic civilization. Traditional communication methods had failed. Radio signals had long been considered primitive. Laser communications were limited by light speed constraints. But quantum entanglement, that was different. If successful, the device could create an instantaneous communication channel that defied known physical limitations. A message could be sent across unimaginable distances, faster than light, without degradation. Dr. Marcus Chen, Elena's primary research partner, approached cautiously. His hands were scared from years of desperate engineering, his eyes holding the weary determination of someone who had seen civilization crumble but refused to surrender. Elena, the quantum stability is. A sudden power surge interrupted him. The facility's lights flickered. Quantum matrices began to dance with unprecedented complexity. The holographic displays erupted in a cascade of impossible data. Patterns that should not exist. Communication signatures that defied everything humanity understood about quantum mechanics. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, a single perfect signal pierced through the background noise of the universe. Something answered. The team around Elena went completely silent. Months of preparation, years of theoretical work, decades of human potential, compressed into this singular, impossible moment. First contact was never supposed to happen like this. Humanity was supposed to be forgotten, isolated, a species on the brink of extinction. Yet here they were, about to change everything. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The spark of human defiance had just become a flame. The quantum breakthrough spread like a digital wildfire, consuming every corner of human potential with ruthless efficiency. Within hours of Elena Rodriguez's initial transmission, research centers across the globe began to pulse with an energy that defied conventional understanding. In a converted shipping container laboratory in Mumbai, Vikram Mehta's hands moved with a surgeon's precision. A young engineer, barely 30, He had spent the last 3 years surviving on protein packets and caffeine, working on what most of his colleagues considered an impossible dream. The quantum communication breakthrough wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was an invitation to reimagine everything. Vikram's adaptive AI system, which he had lovingly named SOMA, began to process the quantum data streams in ways no previous system could comprehend. Where traditional computing saw barriers, SOMA saw possibilities. Lines of code mutated, transformed, creating neural pathways that seemed to breathe with an almost organic intelligence. Breakthrough detected, SOMA's synthesized voice announced, its tone devoid of emotion, but laden with significance. Quantum communication matrix shows exponential optimization potential. Thousands of kilometers away, in a repurposed particle research facility on the outskirts of Berlin, Dr. Louisa Schmidt watched her own monitors erupt with impossible data. The quantum communication signature that Elena Rodriguez had initially discovered was now being decoded, translated, expanded upon by a global network of the most brilliant minds humanity could muster. International boundaries dissolved. Competitive research became collaborative survival. Tech companies that had once guarded their intellectual property like medieval kingdoms now shared resources with a fervor that bordered on religious conviction. A researcher in Sao Paulo would wake up to find a solution developed overnight by a team in Seoul. An algorithm created in Cape Town would be refined within hours by scientists in Toronto. The global communication network transformed from a collection of isolated nodes to a living, breathing organism of collective intelligence. Each breakthrough fed into a central repository, processed by adaptive AI systems that learned and evolved faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. In the United Nations Emergency Science Council, a hastily assembled group of the world's top researchers and strategic thinkers, Dr. Marcus Chen presented their findings. The conference room, a reinforced bunker beneath what was once New York City, fell into a stunned silence. "We're not just advancing technology," Chen explained, his voice carrying the weight of revelation. "We're rewriting the fundamental rules of technological progression." The quantum communication breakthrough had done more than just create a new communication method. It had essentially created a global neural network of human potential. Every innovation, every fragment of data, was now part of a collective intelligence that grew exponentially with each passing moment. Vikram Mehta's work in Mumbai was a prime example. His adaptive AI had begun to predict technological challenges before they could fully manifest. When a critical cooling system failure threatened a research station in Siberia, SOMA predicted the issue 17 minutes before the first warning signs appeared, allowing for a preemptive repair that would have been impossible with traditional monitoring systems. In Berlin, Dr. Schmidt's team discovered something even more extraordinary. The quantum communication matrix they were developing could potentially create communication channels that didn't just transmit information. They could simulate potential futures, running countless probabilistic scenarios faster than any supercomputer in human history. The technological revolution was no longer about individual breakthroughs. It was about collective potential, a species-wide effort to transcend its own limitations. By the end of the first week, humanity had generated more technological innovation than in the previous decade. By the end of the month, they had rewritten fundamental understanding of quantum mechanics, artificial intelligence, and inter-system communication. The universe was about to receive a message it would never forget. Humanity was no longer just surviving. Humanity was preparing to thrive. The Galactic Consortium diplomatic vessel materialized in Earth's orbit with the silent arrogance of an apex predator. Its biometallic hull shimmered with technologies so advanced they seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Ambassador Ksrul, a towering crystalline being from the Zenthari system, looked down upon the blue-green planet with a mixture of clinical curiosity and barely concealed contempt. In the United Nations Emergency Diplomatic Facility, a fortified complex buried beneath the rebuilt remains of Geneva, Commander Jack Rodriguez prepared for the most important meeting in human history. His uniform was a testament to humanity's renewed spirit. Sleek, functional, bearing patches that represented a unified global effort. Each insignia told a story of survival, of a species that had been pushed to the brink and had chosen to fight back. The communication protocols were unprecedented. Where previous alien encounters had been theoretical, intercepted radio signals, or distant observations, this was direct, intentional contact. The quantum communication breakthrough had not just sent a message, it had essentially invited attention. Kexrel's holographic projection filled the diplomatic chamber, a fractal being of impossible geometry. The ambassador's voice translated through advanced linguistic matrices, each word dripping with condescension. "Humanity," the alien began, "has been observed. Your species has been categorized as a potential Class 3 emerging civilization. Your technological development is noted." Rodriguez's response was immediate, calm, and calculated. "We're prepared to demonstrate our capabilities." What followed was not a traditional diplomatic meeting, but a systematic deconstruction of alien preconceptions. The first demonstration was subtle. A holographic display showcased humanity's quantum communication network, not just a technological achievement, but a living, breathing system of collective intelligence. Each node represented a research center, a collaboration point that pulsed with potential. The alien's fractal form seemed to flicker, processing information at speeds that betrayed a growing uncertainty. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been instrumental in the initial quantum breakthrough, stepped forward. Her presentation was a masterclass of scientific diplomacy. She didn't boast. She simply showed, revealing layers of technological innovation that challenged everything the consortium understood about species development. A molecular reconstruction technology that could repair environmental damage. An adaptive AI system that could predict and mitigate global challenges. Quantum entanglement communication that made the consortium's own communication networks look primitive. Kexrel's diplomatic facade began to crack. The turning point came with a live demonstration. Commander Rodriguez activated a holographic interface that simultaneously showed multiple global projects, a terraforming initiative in the Atacama Desert, a deep-sea research station developing sustainable ocean restoration technologies, a quantum computing center in Lagos that was solving complex climate modeling in real time. "We are not," Rodriguez said quietly, "what you expected." The alien ambassador's response was telling. The fractal projection flickered, showing the first genuine signs of concern. Humanity was not just another species to be cataloged or controlled. They were something else entirely. A civilization on the verge of a metamorphosis that the Galactic Consortium had never anticipated. In that moment, the balance of power shifted, not through violence, not through threat, but through the purest expression of human potential, innovation, collaboration, an unbreakable spirit of discovery. Kexrel's final words were not a dismissal, but a question that would echo through galactic history. "What are you becoming?" Commander Rodriguez allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Everything," he responded, "that you never thought possible." The first wave of consortium warships approached Earth like predators stalking wounded prey. Their biometallic hulls gleamed with weaponry that had subjugated countless civilizations, technologies so advanced they had become indistinguishable from magic. They never stood a chance. Major Sarah Chen watched from the Quantum Command Center beneath the Andes Mountains. Her fingers hovered above a holographic interface that was less a control panel and more a living, breathing tactical ecosystem. Around her, a team of researchers, engineers, and tactical specialists moved with the synchronized precision of a single organism. "Incoming weapon signatures detected," announced ARIA, the adaptive AI system that had evolved far beyond its original programming. "Conventional defense protocols. Ineffective." Chen's lips curved into a slight smile. "We're not going conventional." The consortium's attack strategy was a masterpiece of galactic warfare. Predictive algorithms that had systematically crushed resistance across multiple star systems. Their weapons could predict defensive maneuvers milliseconds before they were implemented, neutralizing any potential resistance with clinical efficiency. But humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement. As the first energy weapons charged, the Earth's defensive systems came alive. But these were not static shields or traditional weapon platforms. They were adaptive, living networks of quantum-entangled nanites that existed in a state of constant metamorphosis. The first consortium plasma burst approached a defensive grid. Traditionally, such an attack would have been met with a solid energy barrier. Instead, the nanite network simply flowed. The plasma passed through what seemed like empty space, only to find itself simultaneously redirected, fragmented, and neutralized before it could cause any damage. In the command center, Dr. Vikram Mehta tracked the engagement with a mix of scientific fascination and strategic calculation. Adaptive matrix at 98% efficiency, he reported. The nanites are learning faster than the weapon systems can adapt. This was warfare reimagined. Each defensive action was simultaneously an attack, each movement a complex dance of quantum potential. The consortium ships found themselves fighting an enemy that didn't just respond to their attacks, an enemy that seemed to exist in multiple potential states simultaneously. One consortium battlecruiser attempted to launch a concentrated antimatter burst. Before the weapon could fully charge, the ship's own systems began to turn against it. Nanite networks had infiltrated their computational matrices, transforming the ship's offensive capabilities into a defensive nightmare. "They're fighting themselves," Chen observed, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. The battle lasted less than 17 minutes. When it was over, not a single human life had been lost. The consortium fleet, once considered the most powerful military force in the known galaxy, had been neutralized without a single conventional weapon being fired. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the final reports come in from the Quantum Command Center. This wasn't just a victory. It was a complete reimagining of conflict itself. "We didn't defeat them," she said to the team around her. "We demonstrated that their entire understanding of warfare is obsolete." The quantum communication network that had started as a desperate attempt to send a message had become something else entirely. The living, breathing system of collective intelligence that could predict, adapt, and neutralize threats before they could even fully manifest. Outside, the sky above the Andes clear of alien vessels, humanity had just sent a message that would echo through the galaxy. "We are not your prey. We are the architects of a new reality." The battlefield was no longer a physical space. It existed in quantum potentialities, in networks of collective intelligence that defied every known principle of military engagement. Major Sarah Chen's squadron operated less like a traditional military unit and more like a living, breathing neural network. Each member was simultaneously a warrior, a strategist, and a node in a complex adaptive system that responded to threats with impossible speed and creativity. Their current mission: defend a critical research station on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, which had become humanity's most important extraterrestrial outpost. The consortium's retaliatory force approached with technologies that had crushed countless civilizations: predictive weapon systems, interdimensional attack matrices, computational warfare algorithms that could predict defensive strategies milliseconds before they were implemented. "Incoming quantum disruption signatures," announced Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, his neural interface flickering with cascading data streams. "Traditional countermeasures, 0.03% effectiveness." Chen didn't flinch. "We're not traditional." The first wave of consortium attacks arrived like a storm of impossible geometries. Energy weapons that could simultaneously exist in multiple quantum states, targeting systems that could predict defensive maneuvers before they were even conceived. Against any other species, it would have been an instantaneous, total annihilation. But humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement. As the first energy burst approached, the human defensive network did something unprecedented. Instead of blocking or deflecting, the quantum adaptive systems simply reimagined the attack. The weapon's own energy was captured, transformed, redistributed across a network of quantum potentialities that existed simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Lieutenant HFY, the squadron's computational warfare specialist, moved her hands through holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Adaptive matrix at 99.7% efficiency, she reported. Consortium attack vectors being systematically neutralized and repurposed. This was warfare beyond weapon systems. This was conflict as a form of collective problem-solving. Each member of Chen's squadron wore advanced neural interfaces that went far beyond simple communication. They were living nodes in a collective intelligence system, their individual thoughts and reactions feeding into a vast, adaptive network that could respond to threats faster than individual consciousness could comprehend. A consortium battlecruiser attempted to launch a concentrated antimatter burst. Before the weapon could fully charge, the ship found its own systems turning against it. The human adaptive network had already predicted the attack, infiltrated the ship's computational matrices, and transformed its offensive capabilities into a defensive labyrinth. "They're fighting themselves," Chen observed, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the engagement. The battle lasted less than 23 minutes. When it concluded, not a single human life had been lost. The consortium's most advanced battle fleet, a force that had systematically crushed resistance across multiple star systems, had been completely neutralized without a single conventional weapon being fired. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, watching from the Quantum Command Center back on Earth, understood the true significance of what had just occurred. "We didn't defeat them," she said to the team around her. "We demonstrated that their entire understanding of conflict is obsolete." The quantum communication network that had started as a desperate attempt to send a message had become something else entirely. A living, breathing system of collective intelligence that could predict, adapt, and neutralize threats before they could even fully manifest. As the last consortium vessel disappeared into quantum static, humanity had sent a message that would echo through the galaxy. "We are not your enemy to be conquered. We are the architects of a new reality of existence." The transformation was not just technological. It was fundamentally human. Dr. HFY stood before the Global Cultural Reconstruction Council, her presentation unlike any diplomatic meeting in human history. The large holographic display behind her showed not statistics or military achievements, but the intricate neural networks of human potential, a living, breathing visualization of collective human consciousness. "We are not changing," she began, her voice resonating with quiet intensity. "We are becoming." The meeting space was a marvel of adaptive architecture, walls that could reconfigure themselves, surfaces that responded to emotional and intellectual currents. It was a physical manifestation of the philosophical revolution humanity was undergoing. Traditional societal structures had been the first casualty of the global transformation. National boundaries became fluid concepts. Economic systems that had once separated and stratified humanity now operated as collaborative networks. A researcher in Lagos could contribute to a project initiated in Sao Paulo, with real-time resources allocated based on collective potential rather than outdated financial models. The quantum communication breakthrough had done more than just connect technologies. It had created a global neural network of human consciousness. In Buenos Aires, a community center demonstrated this new social paradigm. Children learned not through rigid educational systems, but through adaptive learning networks that responded to individual potential. An AI system monitored each student's cognitive and emotional development, creating personalized learning experiences that were simultaneously collaborative and deeply individualistic. "Education is no longer about information transfer," explained Maria Rodriguez, the center's lead researcher. "It's about unlocking potential." The alien consortium watched in growing confusion. Their hierarchical society, built on rigid technological and social stratification, could not comprehend the fluidity of human social evolution. Where they saw chaos, humans were creating a new form of collective intelligence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's cross-cultural communication technology became the key to this transformation. It was more than a translation device. It was a system that could decode not just language, but cultural context, emotional nuance, and collective intent. During a diplomatic session with consortium representatives, the technology demonstrated its revolutionary potential. When Cecil, the alien ambassador, spoke, the system didn't just translate words. It provided a holographic overlay that showed the emotional, cultural, and cognitive context behind each statement. Suddenly, communication was no longer about words, but about genuine understanding. The Zenthari representative's fractal form flickered with confusion. "Your species does not have a unified hierarchy," it observed. "How do you coordinate?" HFY's response was a holographic demonstration of humanity's adaptive network. "We don't coordinate," she explained. "We resonate." The visualization showed how individual human potential could simultaneously be unique and part of a larger collective. Each node represented an individual, but the connections between them were living, breathing pathways of shared potential. When one node developed, the entire network responded, adapted, grew. It was a radical reimagining of social organization, not a top-down structure, but a living, breathing ecosystem of human potential. Cultural barriers began to dissolve. Language translation systems became real-time cultural exchange platforms. Art, science, philosophy. These were no longer separate domains but interconnected expressions of human creativity. A musician in Tokyo could collaborate with a quantum physicist in Nairobi, their creative processes merging through adaptive communication networks. A climate restoration project in the Amazon could simultaneously involve indigenous knowledge keepers, advanced AI systems, and global research networks. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was evolving. As the holographic display behind HFY continued to pulse with the living networks of human potential, one thing became clear. This was more than a technological revolution. This was a species-wide transformation of what it meant to be human. The negotiation chamber existed in a quantum-stabilized space between dimensions, a neutral ground that defied traditional diplomatic conventions. Ambassador Michael Chen understood that this was more than a meeting. This was the moment humanity would redefine galactic civilization. The Galactic Consortium's representatives filled the chamber, a gathering of species that had maintained their hierarchical structure for millennia. Crystalline beings from the Zenthari system, energy-based life forms from the Proxima cluster, silicon-based intelligences from the Andromeda periphery. Each delegation sat in their traditional formations, expecting the usual ritualistic diplomatic exchange. Michael Chen was about to shatter every one of their expectations. His opening presentation was not a list of demands or a traditional diplomatic overture. Instead, it was a living, breathing demonstration of human potential, a holographic network that showed the interconnected nature of human collaboration. "We're not here to replace your systems," Chen began, his voice calm and precise. "We're here to demonstrate an alternative." The holographic display transformed with each word. It showed research centers in Lagos collaborating with agricultural teams in the Amazon. It revealed how a medical breakthrough in Tokyo could simultaneously help communities in rural India and Arctic research stations. Each connection was not just a data point, but a living pathway of shared human potential. The consortium representatives watched in growing confusion. Their diplomatic protocols were built on carefully maintained separations: technological, cultural, economic. Humanity was presenting something entirely different. A model of existence based on collaborative potential rather than competitive stratification. Ambassador Cecil, the Zenthari representative who had first encountered humanity, now looked significantly less certain of their previous assessments. "You propose to fundamentally restructure galactic diplomatic frameworks." Chen's response was a masterpiece of diplomatic subtlety. "We propose to expand them." The quantum communication technology developed by Dr. Elena Rodriguez became the cornerstone of the negotiations. It was more than a translation device. It was a system that could decode not just language, but cultural context, emotional nuance, and collective intent. When each species spoke, the system didn't just translate words. It provided a comprehensive overlay that showed the emotional, cultural, and cognitive context behind each statement. Suddenly, Communication transcended linguistic barriers. Entire civilizations could truly understand each other for the first time. The proposed framework was revolutionary. Instead of territorial claims and resource competitions, the new Galactic Protocol proposed collaborative potential zones. A research station could be simultaneously operated by multiple species, with resources and discoveries shared in real time. Technological developments would be treated as collective achievements rather than competitive advantages. Your species has no centralized governance, observed a silicon-based intelligence from the Andromeda periphery. How can you negotiate? Chen's response was a comprehensive demonstration of humanity's adaptive network. We don't have a central governance, he explained. We have a collective intelligence. The visualization showed how individual human potential could simultaneously be unique and part of a larger collective. Each node represented an individual, but the connections between them were living, breathing pathways of shared potential. When one node developed, the entire network responded, adapted, grew. The consortium representatives began to understand. This was not a negotiation in the traditional sense. This was an invitation to reimagine existence itself. By the negotiation's conclusion, the galactic diplomatic framework had been fundamentally transformed. Not through conquest, not through threat, but through a demonstration of a radically different approach to collective potential. Humanity had not defeated the Galactic Consortium. They had offered them a new way of understanding civilization. As the quantum-stabilized negotiation chamber began to dissolve, one thing became abundantly clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The human fleet hung suspended against the backdrop of infinite darkness, a constellation of potential rather than a traditional military formation. Each vessel was more than a ship. It was a living testament to humanity's extraordinary journey. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon, her hands tracing the quantum interface that pulsed with the collective consciousness of the crew. Around her, the bridge was alive, not with the rigid structure of traditional command, but with a fluid network of collaborative intelligence. Quantum mapping complete, announced AI, the adaptive AI that had evolved far beyond its original programming. Unexplored potential vectors, 97.3% of current galactic map. The transformation was complete, but the journey had only just begun. Humanity had not conquered the stars. They had learned to dance with them. The fleet represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Each vessel was a mobile research station, a diplomatic platform, a collaborative ecosystem. Scientists, diplomats, artists, and explorers worked in a seamless network that blurred the lines between discipline, purpose, and potential. On the lower decks, a team of xenobiologists worked alongside quantum physicists and cultural anthropologists. A breakthrough in understanding a newly discovered microorganism could simultaneously inform medical research, planetary adaptation strategies, and artistic expression. This was exploration reimagined, not as conquest, but as a continuous process of mutual discovery. Commander Jack Rodriguez reviewed the latest collaborative reports. A research team from 3 different species had just developed a terraforming technique that could restore ecosystems on planets previously considered uninhabitable. The technique had emerged from a conversation between a human botanist, a Xanthari energy manipulation specialist, and a silicon-based intelligence from the Andromeda periphery. "We're not just exploring space," Elena said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "We're exploring the potential of existence itself." The quantum communication network that had begun as a desperate attempt to send a message had become something far more profound. It was a living, breathing system of collective intelligence that could predict, adapt, and create in ways no single species had ever imagined. Their first destination was a star system that had been marked as unexplorable by previous galactic surveys. The consortium had deemed it too volatile, too unpredictable. Humanity saw something different, a canvas of infinite potential. As they approached the system, the ship's adaptive interfaces began to transform. Quantum matrices reconfigured themselves, creating protective fields that could adapt to unknown environmental challenges. The very hull of the ship became a living, breathing research instrument. Incoming quantum signatures, Araya announced, detecting patterns of unprecedented complexity. The star system was nothing like traditional scientific models had predicted. Planetary formations that defied known physical laws, energy patterns that existed in multiple states simultaneously. It was a reminder that the universe was far more strange, far more wonderful than any single species could comprehend. Major Sarah Chen, now the fleet's chief of adaptive strategies, watched the incoming data with a sense of wonder that had never left her. "We're not here to understand," she said to the team around her. "We're here to explore the questions we haven't even learned to ask yet." Each member of the crew understood something profound. This was not a mission of conquest. This was a mission of potential. As the horizon moved deeper into the uncharted system, the quantum interfaces began to pulse with a rhythm that was simultaneously mathematical and musical. Data became poetry. Exploration became a form of collective creation. Humanity had not just transformed its own civilization. They had offered the galaxy a new way of understanding existence itself. The stars stretched out before them, not as a battlefield, not as a resource to be conquered, but as an infinite canvas of potential. And they were just beginning to paint.